Welcome to another episode of Season 2 of Cohort W. I'm your host, WOCC faculty member and the current Warrant Officer Historical Foundation Fellow, CW5 Leonard Momini. In today's episode, our incredible guest will share some personal and professional experience, mentorship, and leadership as a senior warrant officer. The senior warrant officer will then examine how this insight should ultimately influence action, development, and education for those they serve and the greater cohort. The conversation is directed at leader development, talent management, and what they are doing to support the Army for the future fight. Finally, all Cohort W guests have an opportunity to share a favorite anecdote from their career as a senior warrant officer. Today, I am joined by the WOCC Deputy Commandant for the Army National Guard, CW5 Caniglia. Thank you so much for your time today, sir.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. This is such an honor and a great opportunity to kind of put our message out there and represent not only the National Guard, but just the college and where we're coming from and what we're doing. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And believe me, it is our honor. Okay, I don't know if you know this, sir, but you are actually our first Compo 2, our Army National Guard guest for the year. So you do have that to your resume now.
Thank you very much. Like I said, it's an honor. I appreciate the opportunity.
Can you share with the audience just a little bit about yourself? Tell us who you are, where you come from, and one of the fan favorites, how long have you been a warrant officer?
Absolutely. Again, CW5 Jeffery Caniglia. Originate from Nebraska. So I part of the Nebraska Army National Guard. Actually been in the Army for 36 years, if you can believe that. I've been a warrant officer for 33 years now. Kind of went through the program back in 1988. I showed up down here at Fort Rucker and graduated in 1989. I was a warrant officer all the way through flight school at that point in time. So
it's a tremendous record of service, sir. What's your MOS and MOS title? And then let's kind of once we talk about that, dive into what your current duty position is.
You bet. So my current MOS, I'm a 155 Echo, but over the years, and we'll probably get to this a little bit later too, but multiple MOSs, mostly in the aviation field, obviously. As airframes change, those MOSs change a little bit, but always in the aviation branch. Again, a 155 Echo, that's a fixed wing or C-12 pilot. C-12 SP by trade before I came down here to the college. So here at WOCC, I'm actually in a 011 Alpha position, which is MOS immaterial. And that currently I'm filling the Deputy Commandant for the Army National Guard position down here at WOCC. It's a Title 10. They call it an OTOT. It's a one-time occasional tour. So anybody across the nation, across the 54 states and territories that the National Guard has, can apply for the position and come down here and represent the National Guard as one of the deputy commandants.
So before we dive into this, the aviator in me wants to go back and just dig a little, because you said you've had multiple MOSs. And this gets to the question, how has your aviation career been different in the Army National Guard compared to what a warrant officer might experience in the active duty?
Hey, that's a great question. And honestly, it's pretty humbling too, because really when you think about it from the National Guard perspective, we're a little bit different. We hold those same active duty Compo 1 minimums. We do the same amount of flying, all those kind of things, but we have to balance, our career and family, mostly the career piece of it, along with doing the additional flying and those kind of things. So I came back from flight school. I'll just kind of list a little bit of the airframes that I've flown over the years and been lucky enough to do. But the UH-1 Huey, I was one of the first classes at Fort Rucker here. We didn't do the TH-55s. We went straight into Hueys as the primary trainer. And then at that time, it was called multi-track. So I went into the AH-1 Cobra and flew gunships. Got back to my unit, and the Guard being the National Guard, we actually had UH-1 Mikes, the old gunships. So I had the opportunity to fly those when I got back and fly with the Vietnam era pilots who taught me just a wealth of knowledge and how to fly the airframe. Over the years, I've flown the OH-58. Once we started the modernization, I flew UH-60 Alpha and Limas, the UH-72, the C-12 on the fixed wing side, and the UC-35. Really, when you look at that expanse of 33 years, we've gone through a lot of transitions and modernization. So that's why the MOSs have changed. In the National Guard, too, we don't have the depth or the pool of pilots. So we have the ability to kind of do training or the ability to fly multiple airframes, especially if you're full-time. I flew many years. I was doing civilian EMS. So really that was my background or my civilian job while I went as a traditional guardsman or an M-Day. On the reserve side, they call it a TPU soldier. But I would balance that, flying those different airframes, and then flying on the civilian side. I flew civilian EMS as well. Accumulated about 10,000 hours, so just been in the cockpit for a little bit. So it's been an outstanding career. And I'm telling you, being in the Guard, it's just a multitude of missions. Very unique from the domestic to the overseas operations and capabilities I've been able to do. You support not only the federal mission, but our state mission as well, and saving lives and doing those kind of things back in the state. Had the opportunity to fly on 5 of the 7 continents, and I can't say I wouldn't have done that if the Army and the Army National Guard didn't allow me to have those opportunities throughout my career.
I'm going to assume you did not make it to Antarctica.
You got it. That is what I got to find a way, right? No, you got it.
I think at this point, life goals, that's where that gets filed under. But I was curious because a little over 10,000 hours for our listeners. If you take that 10,000 hours, you divide that by 24 hours in a day. It's 416 days of this gentleman's existence that he has spent at the controls of an aircraft. Aviators like that are few and far between. You mentioned you're in an 011 Alpha position. Can you just give a little bit of background about what it is you do as a senior warrant officer for National Guard at the Career College?
You bet. Basically, my position as the Deputy Commandant for the National Guard, I'm the principal advisor to the Commandant and the Deputy Commandant. And really, there's a lot that goes into that because not only do I advise on National Guard affairs, but I serve as TRADOC Senior Army Guard Advisor, they call it. I have monthly meetings with TRADOC DCG for the Army National Guard, kind of keeping Major General Bissell and kind of updated on what's happening here at the college, our initiatives, and our modernization efforts and what's moving forward. I represent the Army National Guard on those aspects as well as we sit in and we do the development of not only WOCS changes, the ILE changes, and the SSE changes. I have direct input and able to kind of represent Compo 2 on any of those initiatives and where we need to go. I also have to kind of work with the Warrant Officer Senior Advisory Council, and that's the 54 different CCWOs throughout the states and territories. I'll work with them closely on not only their students for WOCS, ILE, SSE, but just modernization initiatives, any of those kind of things. I'll be working with the CCWOs on that as well. And then I put another hat on, and then I work with National Guard Bureau training. So again, that's one group because we have 27 RTIs that I work with that teach WOCS. Again, I have to work with NGB Tri on the funding, our SMDR cycle of how many seats we're going to push students through and those kind of things. So I do that. And then I also coordinate as a senior guard advisor with the COEs. So we all, the W5s at the COEs, from the National Guard, we kind of keep connected and synced up on any of the changes that go through. So the plate's a little bit full, but I got to tell you, it is a great opportunity for folks. If you're thinking about coming down to the college, I have to tell you, you can make so much of an impact on different things, whether it's the PME development, whether it's the day-to-day mentorship of our WOCS, ILE students, SSE students. You have touch points with those students throughout, and it's a phenomenal experience.
You threw out a lot of acronyms there a minute ago, but one of the ones in particular that you mentioned that may be a little foreign for the uninitiated listener, you said RTI, 27 of them. What are those?
Thank you for bringing that up. So the regional training institutes have been developed. We do that in the National Guard, and really it's an initiative not only with the warrant officers, but we do it with the NCO, NCOES. We'll do it with officers, OCS, those kind of things. So we have the Warrant Officer Candidate School at 27 RTIs. When we talk about that, you really got to look at the perspective of how many seats. So our mission in FY23 is to create 795 new warrant officers. Well, at the college here, when we go through how many seat allocations each combo gets, I only have, for the Army National Guard, 361 seats for FY23. So that puts 434 candidates that have to go to the regional training institutes, those RTIs. So they are a critical piece of making our mission for making new warrant officers. And really the way that's done is in two phases. Phase one is they'll attend 5 weekends or 5, we call it 10 IDTs or individual training periods. So that's 5 different weekends. So over a 5-month period, they'll do 1 weekend each of those 5 months. They'll knock out 2 of our exams during that time frame. They'll knock out the 10K foot march. They'll do a lot of the academic piece of the puzzle throughout that time frame. And many times they're doing a Cub briefing and briefing senior leaders during that time frame. So knocking out everything that what we do here at the college with our WOCS program, they're doing it over that 5-month period. So they still have to maintain their jobs. They're still maintaining family in it, and then they're also coming into the RTI and knocking out WOCS on that weekend. So when it culminates, they have a phase 2 that they have to attend. Those candidates do, and it's a 14-day period. That is what's considered their annual training, and they go to either Camp Atterbury in Indiana, or they'll go to Fort McClellan in Alabama here, and knock out those 14 days. And again, they'll take 2 more exams. They'll do land navigation at that point in time, and a lot of our other assessments to finally graduate that phase 2 and become warrant officers. It gives that traditional soldier or the M-Day soldier the opportunity to either choose to come to Fort Rucker, or they can go through their RTI, that Regional Training Institute, that is a critical piece for creating new warrant officers.
And for anybody listening who may have been on the fence about becoming an Army warrant officer, now you know there's multiple ways to get after that. So don't stay on the fence too long. Come on over. It's pretty nice over here.
It absolutely is.
Obviously, the RTIs is an incredibly important mission to what we do for the Army as a cohort.
Extremely proud of the RTIs. You know, you've got CW5 Ron Baird, who is the CCWO for Indiana, and basically he becomes the deputy commandant when they do that phase 2 at the RTI. Last year, they graduated 238 brand new warrant officers out of their RTI. And then at Fort McClellan, Alabama, you've got CW5 Tracy Jolly, again, the CCWO for Alabama, but he acts as the deputy commandant during their phase 2 at the RTI, and they graduated 110. So again, that's a heavy lift from both of those locations to train that many warrant officers over a 14-day period, and culminating for their phase 2. So I appreciate their hard work. And really, it's the staff. You know, when you think about what goes into what we do here at the college, all of these folks, the TAC officers, instructors, this is all volunteer above and beyond their normal duty description. So really it's quite the lift, or the heavy lift, or it's incredible to see the dedication to the development of the cohort and giving back from those warrant officers that participate in those programs and keep those running.
You know, we know that you are not the senior warrant officer for the entire Army National Guard, but you are a senior leader in the Guard. And so I just want to ask, what are some warrant officer-centric concerns that the Guard is currently facing?
That's a great question. And really, when you look at it, the role of the National Guard, it continues to expand. And really, as we modernize, we know how important the warrant officers are. Those technical warrant officers and the roles that they fill are critical to the modernization. You know, when we look at some of the cyber, the space, those elements that are picked up by the National Guard in our modernization efforts, you know, some of our field artillery, the ADA piece of the puzzle, those roles are critical as we change, as the Army National Guard modernizes. So some of the concerns is, you know, we still continue to have not only the domestic mission, the state missions, and those roles have critically, you know, they're critical to the states and the support there, because you look at the COVID-19 response, you look at the Capitol response that we had in January, really the Guard picked up and played a critical role in that. And I'm going to tell you, the warrant officers play a role in that as well. So we have warrant officers out there doing the COVID testing during that time frame that had elements, you know, of 30 plus people kind of helping and working. So as an officer, you're going to be in charge of those teams. You're going to go out there in the communities and support those efforts. And really, that has not slowed down. The other thing that hasn't slowed, you know, the response to hurricane support, the wildfires that have spread through California, the western states as well. We continue to support those efforts with our aircraft and crews. And really, it's just phenomenal, because you think about it, we still have nearly about 120,000 troops that are still deployed and doing the federal mission overseas as well. So it's a lot, and the Guard steps up and does a lot with the resources that we are given. So we ask a lot of our soldiers, we ask a lot of the Guard folks, and really that's a little bit concerning, because, you know, we don't want to burn them out, but at the same time, a lot of us, when we give back to the communities, when we do those life-saving responses, saving the communities, putting the fires out, or saving, you know, the flood relief and those kind of efforts, the COVID relief, it really makes it's the soldiers actually doing the missions that they have been trained for. So again, those are things that are good, but at the same time, we are stretching and working our folks pretty hard.
What education or training, whether technical or Common Core, do you see being relevant and impactful to the development of warrant officers? And can you explain why you feel that way?
Absolutely. So really, the technical aspect of things is pretty easy. We pick that up. You know, a lot of us have been in our fields or done that type of work for forever. And really, we're good at it. We enjoy it. And that's what we thrive on. What I'm going to tell you from an educational standpoint, when you look at the progressive and sequential aspect of things, look at WOCS, and then we're moving on to WILE and SSE. I have to tell you, the communications, both written and oral communication aspect of what we teach, and as we progress, that is the key element to make any warrant officer successful. When you look at a Common Core, and the things that are going to make you successful as a warrant officer is your ability, both in written communication, the ability to brief your senior leaders on, you know, whether you've got issues with a system that you're working on, or you've got the ability to change an MTO or TDA, those kind of things. You have to articulate that aspect of it. And if you don't have the skill set or the ability, that's what we provide from the college. And that's what we're continuing to develop here at the college and looking at those. So really, that communication aspect of things is really critical, in my opinion, to getting your point across and making you successful as a warrant officer.
You might be talking to a W3 or W4 out there that aspires to someday rise to the position that you hold. What do you say to them?
As a CW3 or 4, really, I want them to understand that they're part of a team. I love the enthusiasm as they go forward, but if I can say anything to them, it's again that humility piece of the puzzle as we move forward, and you getting the buy-in from the leadership and your other fellow warrant officers as well. That'll make you successful.
It's been said that experience is the best teacher. What experience, success, or even failure have you learned the most from?
Hey, so you're gonna have failures, and I'm not afraid to admit it. When you do have failures, again, you own up to them, and you have to reflect on it, and then you change your course and drive on. But here's the piece of the puzzle that I think is critical to warrant officers is understanding the 7 principles of mission command. I mean, truly, that's what makes us successful. If you can understand those principles of mission command, that mission command element of what they want, we can take action, and the successful warrant officers that you and I have worked with and seen, they're the ones that they don't sit back. They don't wait for the commander to say anything. They understand what that mission command is. They understand those principles. They take action. They take the initiative and they run. And here's the funny thing is you could run with it and you don't know your left and right boundary limits. That's what I tell a lot of people until you exceed them. So that's up to those commissioned officers to reel us back in. It's like, hey, chief, I need you to do this or that, and it's like they can pull us back a little bit. Or if we fail and we didn't meet the intent, then, hey, I've learned from it and drive on. What I have found is commanders that give you that clear guidance, that give you those clear expectations, those are great leaders because number one, they're giving you their expectations. Number two, they're allowing you to go out there and make mistakes. And if they help you, to reorganize, get back on track after you've made those mistakes and help you develop yourself, those are some great leaders and you should latch on to them. Us as senior leaders, as W5s, hey, those W2s and W3s we work with day in and day out, they're learning and they're cutting their teeth and they're going to make mistakes, but we have to, sit there and help develop them. And I've been lucky and fortunate that I've had mentors throughout the years that have allowed me to do that.
I just want to tell you, it's been fantastic to share this time with you. I know that our listeners have enjoyed it. So just want to say thank you again.
Hey, thank you very much again for the opportunity and look forward to talking to folks out there. So, hey, please, any National Guard issues, give me a call. I'm good. I'll help support you any way I can. So thank you.
Absolutely. Hey, it is so great to hear senior warrant officers talk both doctrine and share mentorship with those they seek to serve. Thank you so much for your time and sharing how a senior warrant officer's leadership can ultimately contribute to meet the doctrinal requirements for both the current and future fight. For updates on Cohort W and the Warrant Officer Historical Foundation, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Simply search for @WOHF1918 or the Warrant Officer Historical Foundation. Finally, to learn more about how you can support programs like this, please visit warrantofficerhistory.org.